felt it lately? That feeling that the way you get your news has just been completely flipped on its head? Well, it's not just you. The era of appointment television and the morning paper, it's over. We're all playing by a totally new set of rules now. And in this explainer, we're going to break them down using some really fascinating findings from the latest Reuters digital news report.
It all starts with this number, and this one might actually shock you. 40%. That's how many people are now actively trying to avoid the news. We're not talking about just flipping the channel. This is a conscious choice people are making to disconnect, mostly because of anxiety and just feeling worn out. This one stat, it's really the key to understanding this whole new world.
So what's causing this huge tune-out? Well, it's a massive power shift. On one side, you have traditional news, TV, newspapers, even their websites, and engagement is just in a total free fall. And on the other side, our reliance on social media, video platforms, and individual creators is just getting bigger every single day. The old guard is losing its grip, and a new one is taking over. All right, so first we have to talk about what's actually broken here. The old way of doing things, it ran on two things, habit and authority. You know, you watched the news at the same time every night, you read the paper that showed up on your doorstep. But that world, yeah, it's not just fading, it's gone. And the data shows us a huge generation gap is the reason why. And this chart, wow, it just lays that generation gap out perfectly. For people over 55, look, TV is still the main source of news for almost half of them. But for 18 to 24-year-olds, whoa, that number just craters to 23%. It's not that younger generations change the channel, it feels like they've left the living room altogether. So, if the old editors and the news anchors aren't the main gatekeepers anymore, then who is? Well, the answer is this whole new class of platforms and personalities who are now shaping what you see, what you hear, and ultimately what you believe.
You know, for decades, the answer to this was simple. It was a small group of editors in a newsroom deciding what made the front page. That was it. But now, the answer couldn't be more different. It's way more complex and a lot more personal than it's ever been.
Let's meet the new media moguls. And you know what? They probably wouldn't even call themselves journalists. Just look at these numbers. In any given week, Joe Rogan reaches 22% of people in the US. In France, a guy named Hugo Decrypt gets to 22% of people under 35. And in India, a YouTuber named Dhruv Rathi has an audience of 25 million. They built these enormous, loyal followings just by talking directly to people.
So what's the secret sauce here? What's the appeal? This quote about the American commentator Candace Owens, it really nails the formula. It's this mix of what people see as factual information with a delivery that's fun and engaging. See, it's not just about the information anymore. It's about that personal connection you feel with the host, which for a lot of people just feels more authentic. But hang on. These new gatekeepers aren't all charismatic people. There's another huge disruptive force at play here, one that's a lot harder to see, but honestly, it's potentially even more powerful. I'm talking about artificial intelligence, which is quietly becoming the main way many of us get our news. But here's where it gets really interesting. How comfortable we are with AI in our news depends a lot on where you are in the world. In a country like India, for example, people are pretty comfortable with it. But then you look at the UK, and there's a lot more skepticism. This isn't some one-size-fits-all revolution. It's more like a patchwork of different futures, all happening at once. And all this fragmentation leads to a brand new reality. This new media landscape, it's not just changing how we get our news, it's changing what we believe. It's turning every single social media platform into its own unique political battleground. Yeah, that whole idea of a single public square where we all get together and talk, that's pretty much dead. Instead, what we have are all these different digital arenas, and each one, whether it's X or TikTok or Facebook, it's got its own rules, its own crowd, and yeah, its own political vibe. Let's just take X, what we all used to call Twitter. The data here is pretty clear. Since 2022, there's been this really sharp political split. Right-leaning audiences are a bit more likely to use it for news now, while some people on the left are using it less or have just left completely.
This isn't just a different conversation, it's a political realignment happening right in front of us.
But then you hop over to TikTok, and it is a completely different universe. The fight there isn't really left versus right, it's all about personality. Look at this. Individual creators and influencers, they just dominate. They command way more attention than traditional news companies. It just proves that every platform really does play by its own set of rules. And across all of these new digital arenas, there is one format that is king: video. 3/4 of us now watch news videos every single week. And in a lot of countries, from the Philippines to Kenya, more people actually prefer to watch the news now than to read it. It's visual, it's personal, and it's the native language of these new gatekeepers.
Okay, so we've got this fragmented, personality-driven, video-first world. But what is the psychological toll of all this? Let's circle all the way back to that 40% of people who are tuning out. It's time to ask the really critical question, why? Well, a huge piece of the answer is just anxiety. Nearly 6 in 10 of us are actively worried about being able to tell the difference between what's real and what's fake online. And that feeling of constantly having to be on guard, it's not just stressful, it's exhausting. And it's chipping away at trust everywhere.
And when you ask people for the specific reasons, they're deeply emotional. They say the news has a negative effect on their mood, they feel worn out by the sheer volume of it all, they're just fatigued by the constant focus on conflict. This is a very human response to a news environment that feels relentlessly negative.
As one person in the UK put it, it's upsetting to see inflammatory stories that directly affect my life. For so many of us, the news isn't a distant thing anymore. It's personal. It can be painful. And tuning out has started to feel like an act of self-preservation.
And this might be the most startling finding of all. When people were asked to name the biggest sources of misinformation online, they pointed to national politicians and online influencers in equal measure, 47% for both. Just think about that. The new, charismatic gatekeepers are seen as just as big of a threat as the political establishment.
So, where does all of this leave us? Let's pull all these different threads together and take a look at what the future of your newsfeed is going to look like under these brand new rules.
Here it is, the whole paradigm shift right here. The gatekeepers, they're not just editors anymore, they're algorithms and influencers. The format? It's not just text and broadcast, it's personality-driven video. And the business model? It's shattered, moving from ads to this really complex world of platform payouts and subscriptions. This is a total transformation.
And the result of all these changes is a fundamental rewiring of society itself. We are moving away from a shared public conversation, where we all saw basically the same headlines. And we're moving towards a new reality of millions of individual, hyper-personalized feeds.
And that leaves us with one final and really urgent question. As our news becomes perfectly personalized, curated for our own biases, our own interests, our own emotions, what happens to our common ground? What happens to our shared reality? That's the question these new rules of news are forcing every single one of us to confront.